What's up, guys? Malakan from MKAU Gaming here, bringing you the latest and greatest in video game news and reviews. Today, we are joined by Stay Space Mayhem.
Hey, guys.
Little Brutal Leader.
Hello.
Shaven Wookie.
Sup?
Sub-Zero 2K.
Yo.
Yeah. Anyway, and one of our newest members, Slendy. Well,
Hey,
kind of new. You've just started doing reviews by the sounds of things. So how are you going with that one?
Yeah, I did the first one today, actually. So that was
Yep.
actually going pretty good. Lance gave me the opportunity because he didn't want to do it, you know?
It wasn't something I didn't want to do it. You offered, I thought, yeah, why not?
No, it was a good way to kick off, seeing it's a game that I was really interested in. So
He's the greenhorn.
Yes, the fresh meat.
He's the fresh meat at the moment.
Let's get it.
Yes.
I was about to say something, but I don't think it's appropriate. But
Yeah, no, don't.
No. We'll say
All
that.
right, so Slendy, tell us what you've been doing, what you're interested in, because we all know about us. What about yourself?
Yeah, this podcast knows about us. Now they need
Yes.
to know about you.
oh, mate, I've been doing nothing but playing games because no work. You know, COVID's life at the moment.
Yeah.
Um,
What sort of games do you like? What are your favorites?
well, more FPS. You know, frames. I want more shooters. Open world's not really my thing.
Yep.
Until
That's my thing.
Yeah. Well, until Man-Eater came out, it wasn't really my thing.
Yeah.
Didn't think I could enjoy it. So yeah, shooters have always been my thing, and well, racing games have always quite enjoyed cars, both in real life and on games. So they're pretty much the main things that I play.
Yep. And you play quite competitively, right?
Yeah, I might
competitive
push
shooter
on a
background.
few leaderboards, you know. No, I've every time a COD game's out, I try and push for the highest in global.
Yeah.
Best I've come is 25th in the world, but that slowly drops because I lose interest in the game after about a month because it's pretty much the same game.
Yeah. Oh wait.
yeah,
We all.
I
feel
try
that.
and push. I try and push leaderboards as much as possible, but
Yeah.
it doesn't always happen. I'm not as good as I like to think I am.
He is pretty good, guys. God, he's pretty good. And he's our token like Rocket League player because none of us play Rocket League really.
Yeah, no, I tried it and just kind of went, yeah, no, flippy cars and big balls, not my thing.
I like to play with balls. What
Who
can I
would have
say?
thought? Who would have thought that he wasn't about?
Oh well, welcome to the team.
You and Simon can meet up later.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Alright.
I got a game for you.
All right, before we get too derailed, lately, particularly this year so far, we've had quite a few different games which are being remastered or remade. So had a couple of different Resident Evil games, one of which was a complete remake. The other was a little bit more of a remaster with some aspects of a remake built into it. And then 2K, as you guys know, have recently announced that they're working with Hangar 13 to bring the Mafia 2 and Mafia 3 definitive editions. Not sure if I can mention anything else on that one. I have forgotten. But yes, anyway, long story short, they're being brought up into the UHD world. So I luckily had a chance to review Mafia 2 recently, which will be up on the website. Feel free to have a look at that one. It is absolutely gorgeous. So I figured today we would talk about remasters versus remakes. What are people's opinions on that one? And I think we're going to start with you, James.
Oh, me? Oh, I'm Little Brutalio. See, there's a fine line between what really makes a good remaster compared to a remake. I think in gaming society now, the biggest one to hit, which almost came out of the blue, was like a dream bucket list for a lot of players, myself included, was the remake of Final Fantasy VII. We all thought it was like a dream. Like there were some mods, there was some of Cloud and like Advent Children and Kingdom Hearts, and Sephiroth sort of was in that too. And that's at that point it sort of became the only thing that we thought we'd ever see a high def version of Cloud. When that remake got announced as a remake, I think it just sent shockwaves for months afterwards as to how big that game and the idea and that concept of just taking something that was quite literally pixels and rebuilding it from the ground up was just insane. I think another one that they did recently that I really loved was the Oddworld series. I remember playing Oddworld when I first got a Sony PlayStation, and have it being one of the first games. And I was so intimidated and so scared by the main character of Abe having his mouth stitched up and being the sort of grimly alien-looking dude, to then find out that they're remaking it, or like remastering, maybe I should say. Well, it was kind of a hybrid, but
Yeah.
it was
It's a strange
awesome. It was awesome. Like, I really. So there is a sort of fine line between like what makes a good remake and what makes a good remaster. For them to do Crash and Spyro was, I think, needed. I think there was almost a demand for that. And it sort of is becoming a trend now, and it kind of is taking on a similar vibe of that of Hollywood. You know, there ain't so many more original
running out of
films anymore.
ideas.
Yeah. They're running out of, like, there's always a sequel, there's always like a spin-off, or there's always like, we're gonna go back and, you know, what was the one that didn't work? We're gonna
Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah, sequel, remaster, yeah, but I think Ghostbusters, where they just decided to go and go, hey, remember that?
Yeah,
Classic-
Oh
reboot.
yeah, reboot. There's a
Yeah.
fine line between
Yeah.
remaster, remake, reboot, and then I struggled with sequel. You know, how
So
much can you modify something before it becomes a sequel? You know what I mean?
Well, the
exactly,
next one that's coming out is going to be a sequel.
yeah, and that looks okay. So yeah, I think when the gaming industry and Hollywood start combining and
Yes.
they run similar timelines, it sort of is an interesting thing to see, because Hollywood attempts to do it, and it's kind of this weird trend where you make games based on movies
Yep.
and they crash. You
Mhm.
make movies based on games, they crash. But when you sort of have like a timeline here where it's sort of like, okay, we're going to remaster or remake a classic, or we're going to remaster or remake a classic game, it sort of blurs the line between, okay, Hollywood and gaming are getting along. It's not here and here, it's not here and here, it's there. So I think in the last 4 years, the remasters and remakes have been pretty good. I think the one at the moment that everyone's interested about, especially for PC, is Halo.
Yeah.
Because that has been, and I think the fact that makes it even more interesting is that if you press, I think, tab or something while you're playing it, you can quite literally see the old
Go
game
back
as
to
it is
yeah.
now. So that's, yeah, I think they're definitely making them. Do I have a favorite? As long as they're done right, and I think as long as the passion is there, because we all know, and I think EA is the most guilty of it, is that sometimes it's just a cash cow, and you go, this is shit. Like,
Yep.
but like when Battlefront, I think, first came out, everyone was like, this is not what I remember. And, you know, I think the uprise and the power of the internet kind of changed that.
Mhm.
So at the moment, yeah, remakes and remasters are a good thing. Do I have a favorite? Not particularly, so long as the passion's there. Anyway, my audiobook will be out next week. Thanks for.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, feel free to heavily edit that. That's probably 10 hours of your podcast right there. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Alright.
Oh, that's good. Just
I
means
was
we
about
don't
to say,
have to
did you
talk as
borrow my
long.
notes?
Yeah, yeah,
Because,
no, we don't have to talk as much.
That's
It's all good.
exactly
You
what
watch
I was.
everyone in the group be like, yeah, I agree, yeah, I agree, yeah, I agree. Okay, next topic.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, podcast over. Thanks. See you
Yeah.
later. Alrighty, well, we'll scoop across to you then, Simon, since I know you've got a nice little list of stuff that you wanted to bring up.
Yeah. Pretty much, we can define what's the definition between a remake and a remaster. For example, there's new Command and Conquer that's being remastered. That's coming out. Me and James had a conversation about that. Very excited. And then going back to Halo as well. That one was a long time running, because there was always the question saying, "Hey, look, it's on Xbox." They brought out the remaster of the first one for Xbox, and then we said, when is it coming out for PC? And they finally did the Master Chief Collection, which they did several years ago for Xbox, and now they're releasing on PC, which is very exciting. And it holds up very well. Along with that, we've got Doom, the Doom franchise, and that's actually, that's a reboot, and it's been rebooted technically in some cases 3 times. This is the third time, and the third time is fantastic, and it's good there's some cases whether a remake or a reboot is better than the other one. When a remake can be better, but in some cases it can't. Like going back to the Ghostbusters.
Can someone actually define the difference between a remake and a remaster? We should probably put that out there for people that don't actually know that. Because we haven't actually defined what the difference is.
Well, a remaster is the exact same game, but it's just been updated, graphically wise.
It's upgraded.
Upgraded, yep. And a remake is pretty much having the core of the game, but it's been built from ground up and with new aspects to it, or it's kind
Modified.
of like modified. In some cases, it's a reboot. But in other cases, if you have the same team, or at least the core value of that team, working on a remake, they may even add extra things in that they wanted to originally. Like they didn't have the time, they didn't have the technology back then to do all the things that they wanted to do, which is what's a remake is more veered towards.
Yeah, right, George Lucas. Sorry.
I just thought you guys should know.
We'll bring out Jar Jar Binks in a minute.
Yeah.
But there's like classic ones like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro Dragon, Final Fantasy VII. There was also Black Mesa, which is a reboot, like not a reboot but a remastered of the original Half-Life 1. That team was like just a bunch of programmers just getting together, and they're all individuals just working on a single project. That actually was made into a studio because of how successful it was and how it was crowdfunded. It was all individually, like just people coming together to make it. And, they kept to the core gameplay of it up till the latest release, which was the part of the game which was on the planet Zen, which they brought it like remastered that, remade that, and actually put in things there that weren't in the original. So up to that point, it was pretty much just a remastered, and up to when they got up to Zen, it was a remake, which was a unique thing. But if I could keep rambling on.
Keep going. It's good.
Yeah, no, you're welcome to go for it, man.
Well, it's if we're going to verse remake for remastered, a remake is good because they can bring out the entire collection. Like with Spyro, the entire collection, Crash Bandicoot, the entire collection, Command and Conquer, the entire collection. A remastered is the individual.
I prefer remastered.
Yeah, it's remastered because they're building it from the ground up and they're working on it, things that they should have done. Like not should have done,
that's
but
a remake.
Yeah.
Remasters just sound and visuals and
sound and visuals and graphics.
Yeah, see, I prefer just remasters.
Well, you look at like Mafia 2, for example, the definitive edition. That's a remaster. So it's gone from HD graphics to effectively 4K graphics, and so it's the gameplay and everything from what I can tell. Like I never played it 10 years ago, but I mean it plays exactly like Grand Theft Auto for all intents and purposes. So they've just taken the graphics and you listen to the dialogue and stuff. You look at the vehicles and stuff, everything is identical. It's just it looks and sounds a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
So
to me, there's a place for both of them. But to me, personally, I prefer remaster because I don't... Like, if I like the original game, I don't really want it to be messed around with too much other than appearances and sound quality. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know.
Yo, Atiki.
Yeah,
we appear to have an extra one potentially dropping in.
Hey, we have a special guest.
Where's your webcam, bro?
Yeah, where's your webcam? We want to see your pretty face.
Anyway, Slendy, do you want to weigh in on the topic?
I don't know much in the whole remaster versus remake and everything, like what defines it and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I've noticed, like with Modern Warfare 2 remastered, for instance, it's the same, but they've added things, so that would obviously entitle it to be a remake. Yeah. But in the title, it's actually a remaster. How does that play into it? Because for me, obviously, I have not a clue in the difference. But like in the first scene where you're coaching all the other soldiers on what to do, right after you've done that, you can literally turn to the right and there's a Barrett, and there's a secret achievement that you can get by finding 3 different clowns with the 3 bullets that are left in the Barrett, and that's by getting into areas that you can't even access on the original game.
Yeah.
So with that,
So technically,
obviously-
it's modified.
yeah, technically
So
it's
it would make it a
modified, but they're
remake.
calling a remaster. How does that
Yeah.
work into that then?
I feel like for it to be considered a remake, the game has to be significantly different from its original.
Yeah.
So you look at Resident Evil 2, for example, go back, 15, 16 years ago when that came out. The game was very much, you had one camera perspective and it effectively didn't move. The world you walked around in was a singular 2D picture with a 3D character that would just happen to move around, and then it would change camera angles. But you look at the remake that happened a couple of months ago, which we reviewed, and the game's changed. They had to rebuild the entire world for the game from the ground up. They made it so that you'd be walking around from a third person's perspective, and you could investigate absolutely everything, right down to what was in the corner of a like the join between a wall and a floor, for example. That is a horrible noise. Somebody fix your microphone, please.
That better not be you, Anarchy.
It sounds like anarchy.
Yeah, it looks like Anarchy's.
Yeah. I want to push the mute button, but it's not going to work.
With technical difficulty.
Lance, kick him out.
I muted him. Okay, keep going.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you look at Resident Evil 2, and the game itself has been completely remade this year as opposed to what it was back 16 years ago. Exactly the same story, but the gameplay itself is completely different. For me, personally, that's what I define as a remake versus a remaster.
So maybe that section, even though it is completely new.
Yeah,
They
because
may
there's a
have-
few parts within the game that is different, like areas you can go, so
Yeah.
to speak, and I guess interactive things. There's not much different. The whole game is very, very much the same.
Yeah.
There's just a few areas and items that you can do that are a little bit different. That kind of changed the game or
Play.
of the game that you wanted to originally have, you know?
See, which in my mind would be a remake, but you're right.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
been
Yeah,
coined a remaster.
that's where
because
I
the
was
core
always
game.
confused with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it depends as well on the age of the game.
it's a fine line.
Like, if the game's super, super old, like, going back to Final Fantasy VII, it's very hard to sort of remaster that because it was from an era that what we have now just didn't even exist. It wasn't even thought of. So you quite literally have to remake that game. You can't take the source code and just go, okay, so we'll just replace the graphics, yeah? Like, you have to honestly go,
Build it from scratch.
the story's there, the character's the same, everything will play out the same. We just have to rebuild everything because of how outdated it is. So I think we also have to take into context the age of games as well. Sometimes, and I guess majority of the time, remastering is just a case of putting a game through a car wash and going, hey, I think the one I remember being so instinctively different, this just literally hit me as I'm describing this, was Banjo-Kazooie. They were really advanced for their time, where they tried to do a system with Nintendo 64 that just didn't work, and I don't think I've seen anything up until maybe cloud saves in modern day times now, where they tried to do a system where you did certain things in the original game that would help in the sequel Banjo-Tooie. But in order to do that, you had to buy the Tooie cartridge, save it onto your little memory pack. And while the console was still on, they wanted to develop a feature that said, okay, insert the Banjo-Kazooie cartridge now. And while Nintendo was still hot and cooking, you had to rip out the Tooie cartridge, put the Banjo one in, and it would unlock certain areas of the original game that would then allow bonuses for the sequel. And you had to quite literally, it was called stop and swap. That was the feature they wanted to do. And Nintendo was like, you're insane. That's not going to be a thing. Get GTFO. But when they remastered it, they of course now have the ability to go, okay, so all those things that were locked off and secret and had people questioning back in, because I used to have the Nintendo subscription to the 64 magazines, and I remember there being a constant delay of Earthworm Jim. I always remember that being a thing. But the other thing that was written in the magazines almost every month was what the hell is this ice wall in Banjo-Kazooie? Why can I see a key spinning? Why is there this shark thing that's underwater that you can't get to? And when they remastered it for 360, they brought all that stuff back in because they have the technology to do that now. And of course, the game itself was just given a nice car polish. Everything was smoother, everything sounded better, and little elements were there that sort of went, okay, this is the version that we wanted. And I think that's what Remasters essentially is they take a game that's maybe 10 years old. And I think anything further than 10 years old, I think you'd go into the remake territory. But if it's within 10 years, they go, okay, so technology's come a long way, gaming's come a long way, the ability to do things in the game that we couldn't do 10 years ago, we now can do. So this is the game that we wanted to give you guys 10 years ago that we weren't able to do, and here it is. Oh, and by the way, here's some bonus stuff you can do online or multiplayer or something like that. I think that's kind of where it maybe defines between the two of them. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Lance, what's your take on remaster versus remake?
Look, I don't really care either way. I mean, as long as they're not doing it just for the sake of making money, I guess, which is what, like James said, EA like to do a little bit. But look, Tony Hawk.
Cash in on nostalgia.
Tony Hawk, that's coming out. I mean, I don't know where that sits because they've went right back and got the source code from is it Nethersoft?
Yep.
So I don't know, is it a remake now or is it a remaster? I don't know, because they've also added, a lot of the stuff from Tony Hawk 2 and 3 and 4, I think, into, a lot of the mechanics into the first game, which didn't have it. So is it a remake? Is it a remaster? I don't know.
Have you looked it up?
No, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
They're advertising it as remastered.
Yeah, but I don't know.
It does bring up a fair point, which is, can we just Google the definition?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it a remaster?
I did Google it. That's
same-
why I'm
it's not
annoyed
the same.
because I'm even more confused. It said a remaster is just upgraded,
Yeah,
but not modified.
But it is modified because the first game didn't have half the mechanics that are going into the.
No, well, the one I said remaster is just sound and visuals.
I think
Anything touched mechanically and gameplay wise is supposed to be a remake.
I think it's starting to show signs of they're both sort of are drinking from the same cup, and I think in terms of marketing, most remasters, for argument's sake, let's say most remasters are remade to some capacity.
And then there's a reboot which is starting from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think in terms of in terms of marketing, it's a lot easier to read where they go, "Ooh, remastered," as opposed to remake, because people go, "What's a remake?" and they'll just sit there questioning it, going, "Oh, I don't know, maybe."
Yeah, because a remake sounds like a reboot, like they're restarting.
Yeah.
This is why 2K went down a different route altogether and call it a definitive edition. So it's Mafia 1, 2, and 3 definitive edition, but it's not till you read the description. It says Mafia 1 is a game rebuilt from the ground up. Mafia 2 is a remaster.
A lot of them are doing
is
that
a
now.
remaster. So
Definitive.
it's not either anymore. Here's a definitive edition of this game, whether it's a remake or a remaster.
Yeah. So
that's in the description now. It's not putting the game in a category anymore.
That's what makes me think anything past 10 years is going to be remade. Like Mafia, what was Mafia, like 2000?
2001,
maybe?
No, 5?
Mafia, the first one?
Yeah, I think so. I think I looked it up.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I thought it was way earlier.
I think the last one was 20.
Well, I just looked it up quickly. The one Anarchy reviewed, like Saints Row 3 is a remaster.
Yeah, because that game's within 10 years, I think.
Yeah,
Saints Row, that's just a remaster. There's nothing new added to it. It's just 4K textures.
It's just prettied up.
It's just prettied up. And that's how I always understood remasters as. Like, one of my favorite ever remasters is Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which I got to review. And that was just beautiful. But yeah, when something's untouched, that's what I always thought was a remaster.
Mafia 1 was 2002.
Yes, he's got it.
You were close, dude. You were close.
Mafia 2 was 2010.
Alrighty, so Stace, we haven't got to you yet. Now that you're all nice and confused after Googling.
I have nothing to say, to be
You have
honest.
nothing to say. Okay.
No, other than the fact that it is like a fine line between each. And then, like I said before, James, like how much can you change in a game before it's technically kind of a sequel?
Or
You know?
reboot.
Yeah.
Any
So,
of the above, yeah, fair
yeah,
enough.
so the only thing I really said was my favorite remaster is Shadow of Colossus.
Depending on what marketing wants to call it.
Yeah, exactly.
See,
I mean,
yeah, they class Medieval as a remake, but to me, it's almost exactly the same game, just prettier and better music.
It's past the 10-year threshold though. I think
Yeah.
anything past 10 years is a remake.
I don't know. Like,
I don't think they
it's
know. They're just
confusing.
putting words in there.
Yeah.
I personally think if they're doing anything besides graphics and sound upgrades, it's been remade into something that it didn't have originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If let's look at it this way: if the player is playing and experience something new, in my eyes, that's a remake. Okay, if they're remastering it, should be exactly the same as the person remembers, just fresher. Like if there's any parts where you're like, "Wow, I can't remember doing this," or "This is completely new," to me, that's a remake.
If you guys had the chance, I don't know if this is a question, so feel free to edit it out if it is. If you guys had the chance to remaster / remake, one game that you
That's
think
actually-
deserves it.
That is one of the questions.
That is
That is
actually
one
one
of
of
the
the topics.
Cool. That was great. Stacey.
Well, can we do that one next because
Yeah,
it relates to what we just talked about?
Yeah, by all means,
Yeah.
by all means. We'll do that one now. All right. Well, since you brought it up, James, go ahead.
Can I edit this?
No, we're not editing anything.
Yeah.
We don't edit anything, bro. No time.
Edit it.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So, if you could have the chance to, if someone came to you and they said, "All right, you have the chance to remake one game, like it was just one game, not the spin-off series, and you can't cheat and go, I would redo the whole collection of this series. No,
I'm doing
one
like
game
4
to
games.
remaster. So yeah, one game to remaster. What would it be? For me, I would choose Conker's Bad Fur Day.
I knew
Yes.
you were going to say that.
I knew you would say that. Yeah.
I knew you.
Like I know they did it on Xbox.
On Rare.
Reloaded.
Rare replay.
No, not the Rare Replay one. That was just. That was That wasn't. No, that was.
There was the Nintendo 64 version, then there was the Xbox version, then there was the Rare Replay version.
Rare Replay was just an upgrade to the 64 where they basically did F all to it. They just fixed the sound, made it smoother, and went like, remember this?
It.
Yeah, but it was. I think it deserves the proper treatment now, like the original game.
Oh, the ganky camera and the controls.
Like
Can you imagine how good it could be?
The reloaded version on Xbox arguably probably was its closest, but I think if you were to remaster maybe that version, I think would be great. And I just mean giving that version smoother textures, sound, upgrading its multiplayer, because that multiplayer for its time was insane in the best way possible. I mean, now it'd be just a dime a dozen because you'd go, okay, yeah, it's like every other shooter. But back then it was like, this is intense. This is awesome. So I think, yeah, that game definitely deserves another roll of the dice. Will Rare do it? Probably not. Do they need to do it? Probably not. But I think definitely that game. And then for argument's sake, I want to pick a game that I think deserves it and one that's like really random, like a terrible game that deserves a second chance. Superman 64. Superman 64 is the most hated game, but I think, okay, let's say for argument's sake, let's say the team at Rocksteady made a Superman game.
Or Naughty Dog.
Dude, Rocksteady would absolutely nail it if they did one. Like, look how successful Batman was. Back then, Batman was like side-scrolling punching games, and you're like, yeah, still pretty rad. Arkham Asylum just changed the game and pretty much just put everyone on notice, like, yo, this is how you do a comic book game. And everyone's like, yeah, you win. If Rocksteady were to get the licensing to Superman and do a Superman game, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, that would be sick. But yeah, those are my two choices. Conker's Bad Fur Day, and if it's a really crappy game that deserves a second chance, yeah, Superman.
Fair enough. All right, Stace, I think you had something you wanted to...
I'm going to go James's pick one, but then I'm going to have, like, honorable mentions. You're probably going to guess my one. My one, I would love to have remastered. Not remade, because it's perfect the way it is.
I know which one.
It's going to be Oblivion.
Yeah.
We all knew it. I talk about like at least
Yeah.
one Elder Scrolls every podcast. So I would love to have Oblivion just freshened up. You know, that game is insane. Even Morrowind. I even did like a throwback to Morrowind. I would love to see Morrowind remade. Oblivion remastered, Morrowind remade. But I've also got like a few, like Crazy Taxi. I'd love to see like a remake of Crazy Taxi. That game was awesome. Perfect Dark I have on my list. Even though they did a sequel to Perfect Dark, I want the original like 64 Perfect Dark.
I don't feel like the
from the guts up.
original. I don't feel like the sequel to Perfect Dark. I don't think it was anywhere near as good as what the original was.
Yeah.
No.
And I
Different
know
team.
we're going.
OG.
I know we're going from like Nintendo to Xbox, but the original Perfect Dark for its time was absolutely fantastic. There was nothing wrong with it. So yeah, something like that remade would be fantastic. It'd be incredible.
Yeah.
If they followed the same sort of thing.
See, if you had asked me this question like 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, I would have said Tony Hawk. But, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing that, so
They're doing that anyway.
that's kinda
thank
out.
God.
Yeah.
I had Star Fox 64. And once again, like I know the sequels, but Star Fox 64, that game was brilliant, and I don't even know. Like I went to play it the other day on my like I don't even know how I played it as a kid. The controls are so bad. Like for that to be freshened up.
So I'm
would
just
be
having a
amazing.
flashback when we were playing it and you couldn't even get past the first level, and
Yeah,
I
I
just
couldn't-
smashed out in like
Yeah,
2
I
seconds.
replayed it and I couldn't even do the first level. I don't know how I played that as a kid. I've got some like really cheese ones though, like Pokemon Snap. I
Oh
would
yes.
love to see
Yes,
Pokemon Snap
please.
remade or remastered. That game was lit, man. When I was a kid, I spent hours on that.
The surfing Pikachu.
That game was
Oh.
awesome. Like, kids today, man, you don't even know. You don't even know what you're missing out on.
Yeah, Lance.
I had Need for Speed Underground 2.
Yeah.
Out of like, I tried to pick something from like a range of different genres. Like for a car game, oh my god, that game is awesome. Like the music was good. Like it doesn't even need to be remastered, really. I suppose just the graphics, maybe fresh up, maybe remake it and put some extra different like types of races in. But that game was so good. And I think I've got one more. I had Diablo 2. I'd love to see Diablo 2 remastered. Just like even bringing it up to the quality of Diablo 3, you know, those classic Diablo games. I would love to see those remade. They'd have to probably be remade from the ground up because they're so old. But Diablo 1 and 2. But yeah, there's some games. But my number one's Oblivion. Get on it, Bethesda.
Always going to be Oblivion for you.
All the rest of all the other Elder Scrolls as
Elder
well.
Scrolls. Yeah. Slens?
Alrighty,
yeah.
Lance.
Oh,
Slendy. Sorry. No,
Sorry.
go ahead. Yeah,
No.
Stage.
Yeah,
What
it's
the?
alright, I get it.
I'm so used to hosting.
Nah, like for me, mine's more Dave Mirror Freestyle BMX. Now,
Oh,
I
boy.
smashed the hell out of that on PlayStation 1 so
Yeah.
much. It bring me back for like every time I would come home from school, we would always be at the skate park straight after, up until, you know, the lights go out. You'd get home, you'd eat dinner, and then I'd jump straight on that and do the exact same thing I was doing outside, you know?
Yeah.
It was great. You don't see many BMX games in general. You know, if you do, it's like Trials Fusion, and even then you're not really riding a BMX, you're just going in the line that it gives you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just going back, and it just makes you feel like, you know, you are back at the skate park, you are doing the tricks, trying to become pro like all your friends.
Yeah.
It was so fun, it was so great that it's something that you don't see anymore. Like you've got your Tony Hawk that's coming back out. That would have been something I would have said, you know, 2-3 weeks ago before it got announced.
Yeah.
Because those sorts of games are just, you don't see them much anymore. You know,
They're
Skate
classic.
3 was the last one that you really got into that was decent. That was any type of, you know, riding in that sense. I just would love to see another freestyle BMX game to come back out.
I can picture that in my head, eh? How pixelated and stuff it was.
Oh yeah, I
That would
went
be
back
good
and
for
watched some
Remaster.
videos on it. Yeah, I got a headache pretty quickly.
Yeah, I remember like how you have to jump over a moving train. Oh.
Yep.
Yep. That was a good game. God, you brought back some feels there.
Yeah, well,
That
the
was
only
a good
other one
game.
I would probably remaster would be Simpsons Hit and Run. because that was just a game I
Oh,
jammed straight.
yes.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
Simpsons skin over GTA. Done.
Yeah,
Done.
basically, it was so good. Like that, the one rocket ship car that you would always try and go and find. You know, like it was just so good for the time that it came out. It definitely deserves a revamp of some sort.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Alrighty, Lance, your turn, mate.
Yeah, look, Tony Hawk, before they announced it, would have been on my list just because we sort of got a HD version on the 360, which was kind of rubbish. And that soon left all the stores, so you can't even buy that anymore. So, yeah, the new Tony Hawk would have been on my list. The biggest one that was on my list would have been, if you had to pick one of them, is the Mortal Kombat 2 to remaster. Now, they were completely remaking all three of them in a collection, but I don't know, something happens. I'm not too sure where that stands at the moment. There are rumors of it still
in the works.
But no one wants to admit it's in the works. So I'm not too sure what's happening with that. But Mortal Kombat 2 would be my ultimate remake in HD.
One of these ultimate everythings.
4Ks or whatever. Otherwise, look, to be honest, I'd like to see some of the older good GTA games get redone.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is
that's on my
such a
list.
good idea.
Like, you know,
Vice City, man.
Vice City or
San Andreas.
Vice
San
City.
Andreas. Like,
Oh my
completely redone in a new engine would be cool.
Or even potentially taking like the original, was it Grand Theft Auto London, where it was one of the top-down ones,
Yeah.
and basically just remake that. So take us somewhere other than America.
The Chinatown was a big flop, and that was a overhead.
Yeah,
one.
that was on Game Boy, was it?
PS Vita, I
Or
think,
PS Vita, yeah.
Yeah,
Vice City was so good.
because I had that. So I played it once and just sort of put it aside.
That's it,
Alrighty.
really.
Yep,
Like I said, I'm not really fussed about remakes or remasters, to be honest. As long as they're good, I don't care.
Alrighty, Simon. Oops, sorry. Yes, had something to say, James?
Yeah, before I just want to chime in with another one that hit my head. SSX Tricky. I think that deserves a remaster. That game was BMX. You talk about BMX. That sort of reminded me of like snowboarding, and I was like,
you remember
SSX Tricky.
snowboard thing you used to stand on as well. That was the best.
Yeah,
PS1 had a lot of games. You could almost dig up a list and say, shit, I wouldn't mind remastering half these games, you know?
I was thinking of that, like Prince of Persia and Jade Empire, and I had like heaps. I'm like,
how good is Sony? Hey, so much better than Xbox. Holy.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Alright, can we kick him? No.
Boink out.
No. This is coming from a PC guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say PC Master Race, apparently.
So yeah, well, if jumping on the me because I'd be next.
Yep.
I had San Andreas as one game I would remake or remaster. The other one I was going to choose was System Shock 2, but that's actually rumored to be in the works as well, and I've seen a few screenshots and a bit of gameplay. That would have been a perfect game to remake or remaster. Maybe even do the first System Shock. But I never actually played that much of the first one. The second one was more to my liking. It was a good first-person RPG. But yeah, definitely San Andreas. San Andreas is on top of my list to get remastered or remake. Like I've still got the hard copy at home, and that is still up there. I can't really think of anything else like that hasn't been said already. Definitely, probably, Oblivion would be also one would be awesome to get remastered. Besides that, Tony Hawk, especially it's good with the original soundtrack. I'm happy about
mate,
that.
Yeah.
soundtrack is the song of our people.
That was biggest, like that was the part that if they didn't have the soundtrack for it, it would have been.
Well, that's what was missing from the HD. They didn't have any of the original soundtrack, I'm pretty sure.
That's where I think with Stay saying Need for Speed. Need for Speed Underground. Like I've got the Maximum Bass 2 album on my phone from back then when I was a doofer and had the 10-inch subwoofer in the back of my
Oh.
shitty little '86 Honda Civic, so the thing bounced across the traffic lights.
Dude, I had Riders of the Storm by Snoop Dogg on nearly every playlist since that game came out. It's iconic. Even like when Slendy brings up Dave Mirra, I think I remember some of the music from that game. Like I swear to God, like Heaven's in a Half Pipe is one of the songs on that game. Like they just bring back memories.
Crazy Taxi got me into Offspring.
Oh my God, yes.
Offspring's awesome.
Every time you guys going for a ride? Yeah. Every time, man. I'm like, I love this game.
Oh.
Memories.
That's why I think some of the best games I've ever played. This may have been veering off, but it was the music that was in it.
Yeah.
100%.
It's like Tony Hawk. Music for that. It was fantastic. Kept you going. Kept you pumping. GTA. The music with that. What was that, Stace?
Tony Hawk got me into AFI as a kid. They've been in like my top five favorite bands.
Yeah.
For a long time.
It was pretty much the music, of that, showing our age. But
a little bit.
But no, it's some of the best games I remember growing up. It was the music associated with it. It's like San Andreas, all that music and that, just flicking through all those stations. I could keep playing it. Vice City as well. Some of that music and that, all the music was fantastic. It was great with the scene of the game. What else? It was like even the latest GTA as well. It's just the music with that entire game was just fantastic. So I'm veering off the topic, but yeah, going back, San Andreas is the one I would remake or remaster. My other choice would have been System Shock 2. Another choice would have been Half-Life, but they're already doing that. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fair enough. So I was originally going to say Conker's Bad Fur Day as well, because that game is the bomb. But since James has already picked that one, I'm going to pick one that is sort of equally as messed up and say the original South Park on Nintendo 64.
Yeah, man.
It was
first person snowball fight.
Is that the one where you can shoot chickens and stuff?
Yeah. And you could pick up snowballs and piss on them and throw them at people. You'd run around with a Nerf gun, all that sort of fun stuff. It was basically a South Park first-person shooter.
Yeah.
No, you probably wouldn't, and that's probably why they're not going to touch Conker's Bad Fur Day either. I mean, look how
Stick of Truth got through.
Look how much. Yeah, but they did have to get rid of a lot of that stuff for Australia.
Yeah, they had to put a lot of koala bears in that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
Oh yeah, but no, just I don't know, just bring back a South Park style or South Park specifically first-person shooter with its own story. Like Stick of Truth and Fractured Butthole, yeah, okay, they're kind of cool, but they're basically a side-scrolling turn-based fighter.
Yeah.
Which in regards to that, like that's completely what I was expecting the Final Fantasy VII remake to be, and watch some video footage on that, and holy crap, it looks awesome. Tempted to buy a PlayStation just for that.
How good Sony, guys? God, give it up for Sony, guys.
No,
it's just Sony. Bring back the memories, guys. Sony, oh my god.
But
before, can you do that for?
But yeah, no, for me, like ideally, it would have been Conker's Bad Fur Day, just because for its time, and like I was 10, 11, 12 playing that, and it was incredibly messed up, but it was so fun. There was so much you could do. The camera angles were a little bit at times, but when it's taking off scenes from Saving Private Ryan, taking off scenes from The Matrix, taking scenes from Alien, and just playing fun with it, and it's this cutesy little character doing all this absolutely horrible stuff. It was just awesome. So yeah, hands down, Conker's Bad Fur Day. Have to agree with James on that one.
Yeah,
but
it deserves to be 3D rendered.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Conker started off in Donkey Kong or Diddy Kong Racing.
He did.
He'd be so cute.
And he got a spin-off game on Game Boy, and it was just like, no. And then they went back with Fur Day, and it just changed the game.
All I can think of right now is think of the merchandising.
Oh, yeah. Big
You
Great
could-
Mighty Pooh plushies.
Yeah. That would be awesome. But yeah, no. So in regards to that, obviously when I think about my childhood, Conker's Bad Fur Day is a massive game for me. I think I've mentioned it at most of the podcasts, same as Stace talking about Morrowind and Oblivion and so on and so forth. Elder Scrolls. Yeah, Elder Scrolls. There we go. Just Bethesda. So we'll start off with you, Lance. What takes you back when you think about gaming?
Look, I didn't play a lot of games when I was super young, to be honest. My parents
You
couldn't
worked in
afford.
arcade. You could talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, that's probably where it all kicked off the most. But before all that, parents couldn't really afford getting consoles and all that kind of jazz. I think Atari might have been the only one I had it early on, which is where I had like probably Double Dragon would have been one of my favorite games on the Atari. I think I owned 2 copies of that somehow, just in case I lost one. So that's how good
That's
it was.
how your brain works.
That's good, yeah. Then it wasn't until the arcades, and I saw obviously the Mortal Kombat 1 for the first time, and that's when I got a Mega Drive and when they started coming to home consoles. But yeah, look, Double Dragon early on, and then arcades, and the Mortal Kombat series really sort of kicked off my gaming, to be honest.
Yep. Fair enough. All right. What about you then, Slendy?
Oh, like most of mine were always the whole BMX, skateboard kind of games that I always played. But what really got me into gaming as a kid, I guess, I've always been a competitive gamer since a kid.
He is.
What really got me into that, funnily enough, is pinball machines.
Hey.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Every time me and the old man would go out camping for a holiday and we would find like just a place where he wanted to chill out or something like that, there'd always be an arcade machine, like an arcade place or something. There was always a pinball machine. I had to be the number one, I had to be the best. Always had been. So that got me in the competitive side of it. And, I guess I kind of just love games from that and brought it into everything that I've played now, I just want to be the best at the end of the day. So it's just that's pretty much where I started, was pinball machines, funnily enough.
Call him Ash Ketchum because he wants to be the very best.
Yeah, never got into pinball machines. When I started working in the arcades, though, I had to clean them, and I used to cheat and throw the balls down the things and trigger all the events so I could get my name on the board and put the glass back on the table and walked away and did the next one.
Wow! Stop!
Original hacker right here, guys.
Well, why you had to take the glass out and open, clean all the things and all the balls. I triggered them off, finished the pinball game, put the balls back in, put the glass back on. Done.
Still there today on some poor sucker's pinball machine.
So if you ever see high scores up the top of pinball machines and you don't get anywhere near them, it's because the people that work there generally played it without the glass on the table.
See, when I worked in an arcade, we pretty much did not touch the pinball machines because they never got used. So you just give them a wipe over with a cloth, and that was basically it. The machines that got used for us the most were probably the Street Fighter games, actually. I don't think we had any Mortal Kombat games. Otherwise, yeah, we'd have this one group that'd come in and play Street Fighter all the time. We'd have a couple of tweens and whatnot that would come in and play on the Dance Dance Revolution. But yeah, the rest of the games were untouched.
I used to play a lot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ones too, with the joysticks and the 2 buttons.
Yes.
So I remember playing that on a mate's Super Nintendo, I think. Or maybe it was the original.
I've got a device here somewhere that's actually got it, and I played it the other day, and it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
They just put it into one of those little devices you chuck in a USB now. It's great.
In Arcade 1-Up, I think they're called, about to release the mini cabinets for them, like they did with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, and like the one that I've got here, the Street Fighter cabinet. They're about to do the 4-player Ninja Turtles game.
That'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool. All right, Stace, what about you? What did little Stacey like?
I was really late to gaming. Well, what I consider quite late. So, unlike Lance, my parents wouldn't buy us consoles as much as we begged for it. So I always slept over my best friend's house every weekend. He lived around the corner. And she had like SNES and all of them. So I was quite late. So my first console that I ever owned was a Nintendo 64. And that's probably why I'm such a 64 collector now, because I love it just brings back memories. So I was hugely into Mario Kart. Like when I think of my childhood, I think of Mario Kart. 64. Because when I was a kid, when I'd stay at my best friend's house, we would legit play the 64 till 3 in the morning, and we're only 9 or 10 at the time on a Friday night. So we should have gone to bed, but we'd stay up all night. So that Chameleon Twist is a pretty rare 64 game. No one ever talks about it. It's such a good game. Donkey Kong Country. That game is probably one of the best games of all time. The Sims is pretty iconic childhood, putting Rosebud in and leaving Control V on and then walking away for a couple of hours and coming back and having millions of dollars. I put actually Tony Hawk down. When I think of childhood, I think of Tony Hawk. It's was all we've talked about this stream, but it just is. It's iconic. Iconic, I suppose you could count sports game for our era. And lastly, when I think of my childhood, I think of, Lance will probably like this one, Daytona. I think of Daytona going, when my parents would go, I hated going grocery shopping as a kid. So my mum would chuck us, bung us a few dollars, and my sister and I would sit in the arcade. And I would legit sit on Daytona nearly the whole time.
Yeah, I think I sat on Daytona, but arcades, it was always fighters for me. It was always Tekken 1 and Mortal Kombat 1. I used to spend every afternoon there playing the same shit, and ended up getting a job at the same arcade.
Yeah.
So
I was always shooters. I played Virtual Cop 2 non-stop.
Yeah.
That was my jam at arcades.
Daytona, USA. Yeah, so my childhood is just 64 generally, 007, Star Fox, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. All right, James, how about yourself?
Man, I was a wizard at the arcades. There was a laser tag. Thank you, Sir Gandalf the Lance. And when I was in arcades, I would own at laser tag because all the obstacles were higher than me. So you just see this pistol periodically just come up from behind this block, shoot someone, and go back down. So they could never get me. I think the game ended once, and they just kind of left me in there. So that was fun. That was when was that? That was yesterday. No, it was about I think it was 7 or something. And I think the earliest memory I have, it's kind of strange how there's moments in your life where it's like a morbid or a sad thing, but you find something creative or something fun and it just sticks with you forever. So when I was a kid recovering from all my medical ailments early on, I remember there being this big hoo-ha in this games room that was in the hospital at the time. And this guy had I thought he was Japanese or something because on the back of his shirt he had Nintendo. And I was like, oh, that's a weird sports team because obviously, sports stars like Michael Jordan and stuff had their name. And I thought that was his name. And I'm like, cool, whatever. And then I remember vividly him being him quite screwdrivering something in and then testing the power and then just sort of packing it all up and going, yep, it's done. And then walking off. And I sort of was like, what is happening? And there was this weird contraption that was built out of the wall. And it had this protective screen around it. And so I was on, I think, this wooden tricycle at the time. And I sort of, moseyed on over. And inside this case, built off what looked like, the ventilation sort of, the ventilation filter, how it's got rivets in it.
Mm-hmm.
It was this arm. And on the end of the arm was the original Game Boy.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, what is this contraption? Because it looked like, remember those games where it was sort of like pinball, but it had the bumpers? It had the bumpers and the little ball, and it's I thought it was a blown up version of that. And I'm like, where are the bumpers? And I turned it on, ding, and it was Tetris. And we talk about video game sounds, and Tetris soundtrack for sure. So I remember playing Tetris very, very early on as a kid. I think my first console I had was a Super Nintendo. I don't remember playing what games I played on that. I think Batman Returns. It was the days of like you go to a video library or Blockbuster Video Easy, whatever, and you just rent the games. So I think I tried pretty much all of them, but I can't remember vividly any of them standing out. Graduated to 64. You know, we've talked about 64 games on here already. Graduated then to Sony PlayStation, which, man, wow, how nostalgic Sony, right? Like, so many games. And
oh my god.
Lance will like this, man, because I do vividly remember on just quickly going back, I do remember vividly, and this isn't to blow smoke, but I do remember vividly going over to my friend's house and being like, dude, we have to play this. And we went through every cheat code that there was, every button press method that there was, every ending, every here we go, combat code that we could find during the days of Mortal Kombat 4.
Was it 4?
Yeah, it was 4. It was 4 for me on 64. And
that was a bad game.
And hearing like the sound effects and hearing like the dialogue and like and seeing the endings. I think the endings back then, like you look at it,
they were actually people acting out the endings from memory. Yeah,
like it was like the 3D models were like, you know, I think it was Jarek and Sonya arguing, and it was like dun dun dun. There was like this gigantic cliff, and you're like, oh, you look at it now, and it's just like, oh, okay. But back then, it was like, this is rad.
No, no one said that back then, too. Mortal Kombat 4 that's a bad game.
Okay, cool. Well, to be fair, I was like 8.
Yeah, no,
I wasn't like, what were you in 97? Like 45? So
20.
it was a different time. You know, you just got your 3rd license, and you know, your mortgage was coming through. So I can understand how Mortal Kombat 4 at that time was probably pretty bad. But for us guys that were like 7, 8 years old at that point, it was fucking awesome. Graduating to Sony PlayStation, playing Abe, PS2, man, Def Jam Vendetta, Metal Gear, SSX Tricula we spoke about before, Kingdom Hearts.
I just thought of one. Sorry, James. NBA Jam.
Yeah, that was a shit game. It was shit.
It was bad.
Terrible graphics.
Horrible game. Horrible game.
Mortal Kombat 4 aced it. Yeah, and I think the original Kingdom Hearts, before all the gigantic spin-offs, and yeah, I think all the games that I played on like Sony and Sony PS2, when obviously the other consoles came out like PS3, PS4, PS5. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Remakes and remasters and reboots and sequels. All the games sort of, you know, through marketing and whatever, it was like you can only play the sequel on the next console. So I kind of stuck with that series as best I could, going through the consoles. Some of them, you were like, this didn't deserve a sequel. But a lot of the series I played as a kid, I stuck with. I think everyone here has, in some way, shape, or form, been exposed to or either played Super Mario 64. I think that just set the precedent for all of our childhoods. When that came out, I think arguably that was the first time I played like a really in-depth story game on 64.
Yeah.
It's like this is like my first experience.
64 is amazing.
It was kind of open world, but at the same time it was a bit linear. It was very much like go to this world, go to that world. But if you wanted to muck around the castle for 10 hours and try and, you know, glitch through the wall and try and get onto the roof before the end of the game, man, go for it. But the game starts in the castle.
Yeah.
So
run around the gardens.
I remember those vividly. Mario Party, after school care, like when the first Mario Party came out, we used to watch Cheese TV and then play Mario Party before school.
Can I interrupt you for a sec? You bringing up Earthworm Jim is dead set childhood.
Yeah.
You know, before I was like almost squealed internally, but I didn't want to ruin the podcast. Like Earthworm Jim is like epitome of childhood game.
Yeah.
You know?
It was just for its time. And I think, I don't know if you remember this one, Lance, but there was a fighting game that I'll admit was terrible, like in terms of its graphics, was terrible. It's not
wait. Are you going to say Clay Fighters?
Yeah.
Clay Fighters.
Clay Fighters was the bomb!
Bro,
Clay Fighters 63 and a third was
I
just
remember hiring that from Video Easy a few times.
Yeah, I hired that one a lot. You got
like royalty to find online in mint condition.
It's nuts to think that
rare.
The characters in that was just like, what the hell? Like this sort of like devilish looking snowman. I'm like, this is mad. But I remember playing it and it was like, how the hell do I kick? It was like 9 buttons to kick someone, and it was just like combinations were just so like out of this world compared to, I think, Mortal Kombat probably 4 at that time as well. Like in terms of fluidity of like how to jump and do things, it was just like day and night. It was kind of weird. But yeah, that was a weird fighter game that I always remember seeing the box art for and being like, this is nuts.
There's a few fighting games in that era. I can't think of the names of them though. But
Killer Instinct was another I remember.
yeah, there was another one.
Dead or Alive was another
See,
one.
I always thought Clay Fighter 63 1/3 was like mint graphics because it was almost like they got the claymation figures and then.
Yeah.
So I always thought it was mint graphics, to be completely honest. But yeah, no, I do remember playing as like either Earthworm Jim on that or Taffy. I think were my two characters that were my
I
go-to.
use Taffy all the time too. Taffy
Yes,
was my go-to.
Yes, I remember Taffy so bad.
God, I'm actually Googling it now because I missed that game so much.
I think I stuck a lot of hours, and I think these are games that I think we've all played. So feel free to just chime in and agree. But Rogue Squadron, I remember losing hours in that game.
I have it downstairs.
What else was there around that time? Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Mario Party, Super Mario, Superman 64.
I'm thinking of Soul Calibur for some reason. That was a classic fighting.
Yeah,
it was a
I think
classic
Soul
fighting
Calibur
game.
was like a
little
PS1
bit.
game.
Yeah, I used to play it on GameCube as well.
No one.
GameCube. Yeah, no one had a GameCube.
No one had a
I have
GameCube,
a
bro.
GameCube downstairs too. I have lots of retro console.
Yeah, that's the stuff I remember, like off the top of my head. Like it just sort of after school, growing up, being really sort of losing hours into series. And I think Metal Gear definitely I lost days. I still have my old PS2 memory card full of like every save file untouched from like 2002. And when I had the chance to meet Snake and the Colonel from Metal Gear Solid, I told them that, and I don't know why I told them that. It was like, I'm like 30. I'm like, I have the memory card from when I was 13, and they're like, okay, dude, that was like 17 years ago, but all right. But yeah, it's cool.
Okay, kid.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I am a kid, so get out of here. But yeah, it was one of those moments where I think that series definitely stuck out. But there's so many that you get attached to, and then when they do sequels, you're like, cool, about time. But those are the ones like after school, like Slender was saying, after school, coming home after, being out playing, and then you go, cool, time for more playing. And it was video game world and escaping to that. Yeah, definitely those kind of after school memories I remember vividly.
The other fighting game I was thinking of was Rise of the Robots.
The hell?
Rise of the Robots? It was a Mega Drive game. Same time as Clay Fighters was out.
Okay, old boy.
No.
No?
Look, it could be worse. He could be talking about the Master System. I had one of those.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Is it bad that I really contemplated buying a Dreamcast at one point?
No.
Let's love Dreamcast.
I used to play on
Always buys
Dreamcast.
Dreamcast games when we're at the retro
Dreamcast have some of the
game thing.
best games
Game
on it
market.
come straight from the arcade to the console because they're all the arcade versions.
Yeah, I remember Crazy Taxi. Like that was their biggest that was their launch game, wasn't it? Crazy Taxi.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, like all the arcade games, Sega Rally, Daytona, Crazy Taxi.
I used to play
They were all
Virtual
their
Cop 2.
launch titles. Yeah.
Yeah, Virtual Cop. Yeah.
Virtual Cop,
Virtual
Virtual
Cop.
Fighter.
I love that game. I used to skip school because of that game and just pretend to have a sickie and be like, I'll play it at home non-stop. That and Alex Kidd.
Yes, Alex Kidd.
Are we talking
today about it? And they said Alex the Kid. I'm like, what would you want remastered? And they said Alex the Kid straight up.
Are we talking Alex the Kid on like Master System Alex the Kid? Because that's the only one I remember, and I would not want that remastered at all.
The one built into the console.
At the end of
Yeah.
level, you'd have to play scissors, paper, rock.
Yeah, and then like buy a motorbike or something, and then crash it instantly.
Yeah. No, that was my childhood with those two games. But then eventually it veered off to going to LANs and hanging out with a bunch of sweaty men playing, Baldur's Gate and StarCraft and Counter-Strike. Those were my jams a little bit later on in life.
This is when he was 10.
Yeah, just hanging out in dark under the houses with a lot of hot, sweaty men
Doing
playing
lock-ins.
games.
Oh my
But
god.
Jesus.
This
This
podcast
this
is
is a
definitely
healing
not gonna be
session for Simon.
monetized.
No.
And the quality of the podcast goes down.
No. But it's I didn't just play games. I played a lot of board games as well. But it was Alex Kidd was my jam, and also Virtual Cop 2, and also I played. If anyone remembers this game, Cannon Fodder. It was released on Sega Master System and on I might be Atari as well system, and a little bit like during the 90s. No one remembers that game.
I've
Sounds
heard
like
of
one
it.
of those.
I
Sounds
don't
like
know
one of
what it is,
those.
though.
Sounds like one of those under the houses games. There, Simon.
Yeah, along with Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh my god.
But no. Yeah, played that. A lot of Command and Conquer as well, and
Yes.
StarCraft.
Mhm.
They were two as well. They were fantastic. As I said, Baldur's Gate, 1 and 2, and all those ones. Mech Warrior. Played a bit of Mech
Yes.
Warrior.
Oh, MechWarrior was good.
Yeah, even Tabletop. I played that as well. If we're going to talk about that. I tried a lot of PC games. Half-Life back like 1997 was like an awesome year. Had awesome music and awesome games. Yeah, like Half-Life came
Halo
out.
is kind of a game of our childhood too.
So it's those games around about all the 90s and like early 2000s is like the great year for me for PC gaming, like from Half-Life to Baldur's Gate. If we want to refer to consoles, Final Fantasy, smashed that out so much on PlayStation. Played it deaf. Final Fantasy and also Metal Gear as well. Especially
Gear
you're
is-
gonna like James, you know this.
Sorry. What was Metal Gear on again, Simon?
It was I can't remember. Was it Xbox? No. It was Sony.
Oh,
Yeah.
hit after hit.
Yeah. So I remember if you remember this when you're versing, I think it was Mantis, and you had to change the controller, and it
Yeah,
would
we've already
read
talked about this.
everything off your memory card, and he would start spouting stuff from that. That was classic. Colin McRae Rally was also a fantastic
Oh,
game.
yes.
That was
The many car games, but Need for Speed and Colin McRae.
Colin McRae Rally that deserves a remake, right?
Veer left, veer
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Colin McRae Rally, or just a remastered. Bring that out. Bring that back. But yeah, it's like that's one big PC. There's a lot of PC games playing. I'd attend a lot of LANs, and just everyone bring their computer over, and we'll just network games and play like Total Annihilation to Call of Duty to everything. So yeah, that's my childhood. But yeah, if we want to go back, Alex the Kid and Cannon Fodder and Virtual Cop 2.
Dude, speaking of PC gaming, and I know I've been like a bit of a troll, kept mentioning Sony, but Microsoft did a solid. Back in the day, you used to get the first one on a box of Nutri-Grain, but I remember the second one, the Age of Empires.
Yes. They're doing definitive editions of that now.
Yeah, they've done it too.
Them. So that's another one add to the list. And it feels like now I'm saying to myself, what year is this? Because a lot of those games are getting remastered and remade are like, 10, 20 years ago, which is, of course, the point of it. But it's bringing back so many memories of these, back then.
Mythology version.
I've been sitting here thinking while you guys were talking about it. Like the kids today, if they reflected in 20 years' time, what are they going to say? Things like, "Oh, Fortnite."
Here's what they're going to say:
Call of Duty,
Call of Duty,
like
Call of Duty,
how about
Fortnite,
they're remastering? Because
Minecraft.
We've got nothing real.
How good's the remake of Black Ops 2?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But come on, we're essentially going the same thing when someone says, "Oh, have you seen Ghostbusters?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, Bill Murray's awesome in that." And they're going, "Oh no, it's it's those girls." And you're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, no.
We were living the high life, man. Really, when we think about it.
Did you ever play Burnout Revenge?
Yeah.
Ooh, Yeah.
Dude, that I'd love to be remastered.
Didn't they redo a Burnout game recently?
That was Paradise, I believe it was.
Burnout Paradise,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like Revenge
Sorry,
was
yeah.
the one where you could dive into traffic basically and hit the multipliers and try and explode the car and everything like that.
Is that the one where half the
There was
people couldn't
Revenge,
even
and
do the
there was
tutorial?
the one that was doing that. What?
Is that the one where half the people couldn't even get past the tutorial?
No, that was Driver.
Oh, Driver.
Oh,
Right.
I just remembered Carmageddon. That was
Yes,
that
was
needs
cool.
to be remade.
Well, they
Hey,
did
sorry,
try and
sorry,
remake that on the 64 at one point, and it was a bit
Yeah.
This is a complete shot in the dark, but we're man, Slender, you're dropping some bombs here that are absolutely triggering my memory. This is another car smashing up game. Came out after Twisted Metal and Carmageddon and all that. Does anyone here remember on the 64? There was two of them. Vigilante 8.
yes.
Yes.
I heard of it.
Vigilante 8 and Vigilante
Didn't
8
play
second
it.
offense. Man, Vigilante 8 second offense.
Cruising around in
Crazy.
the school bus with the miniguns on the front.
The trash compacted with the alien driving it or something. Oh,
Yeah, something along those lines, yeah.
crazy ass game. But yeah, sorry, I just remembered that game.
Yeah, no, fair enough. All right, well,
I was about to
anyone
say
got
Road
anything
Rash.
else to add?
How good
Road Rash,
Sony.
there we go. Okay, aside from how good Sony, because
Oh,
we all know that's a
someone
lie.
else did it.
No. We all know it's a lie. We all know it's a lie. They've pulled out of so many different things. It's a lie. But yes, no, anyone else got anything else they'd like to add? Anything they'd like to bring up at all?
Oh well, Last of Us 2 looks trash.
Okay, well, there we go.
Suck it, Sony. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted Slendy before. Did you want to say what you
No,
were
I
saying
got nothing.
about
You got nothing?
Nah.
Driver?
I've just going on to the whole Sony's better and whatnot. I've never been the biggest fan to date of Sony, but I feel like back then they definitely made some fucking.
Oh yeah, they
Oh,
made
yeah,
moves.
yeah.
They did make moves.
Yeah, they did. And man, how shit's Oblivion, eh? Oh, sorry.
Wow.
Wow, you're not invited to
We're-
Sandy's
we're-
birthday
I-
party.
I'm not too sure you'll ever
My
see
birthday's already gone. It got coronified.
I'm not too sure you'll ever see a remaster or remake of those games because they never change their engine.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, burn.
Look, if the engine works, there's
Yeah,
no
burn,
point
take
changing
that.
it.
Doesn't
Save
work.
Lance.
That's the problem.
Cheers, man.
How broken is all their games?
Yeah, I know, right?
Shut up, Lance. You're ruining it.
Anyway,
Look, they're good stories, okay?
absolutely are.
Oh, the story writers.
Yeah.
Last of Us, yeah, great story. Great story.
Well, I was about to say, I was
I
told
think the people that made
Mythbusters proved you can actually polish an actual turd. So,
Yeah, see? Oh my god.
Alrighty, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you very much for joining the episode. If you have anything you want us to discuss or anything you'd like our inputs on, feel free to drop comments if you're watching on YouTube. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone. Slendy, welcome to your first podcast, and catch us all later.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
bye.
How good Sony?
Bye.